Okay, we are starting. So, assuming you have Python installed, you have an ID, of course, a VS Code or PyCharm, your favorite. Then now you've cloned this application, right? Now you want to convert it to be served by Python. So Python, we are going to use Django. So we usually have two main frameworks that are used for Python. That is the Flask and the Django. Flask is most majorly used for the small scale application, the small sized application. Then Django is for an enterprise, largely a highly scaling application, and we'll be learning that one. We'll start learning that one today. So the first thing you'll do, you'll create a virtual environment, and in Windows you can just try run Python fnm then vm then the name of the environment. So we'll call ours env. If I do that, it will create an environment for us, and you'll see the folder named env over here. So this environment will be carrying the libraries. So we'll be having our libraries and everything that our project needs on this environment. Okay, it's really taking long. So step number one, create an environment. Yeah, if you are having an issue, maybe it cannot create, maybe you have to install virtual env. So just do pip install virtual env. So there's that first command running this. An alternative one, you can run, you can write, let me open this one so I can write for you the commands. So you have the step one to create an environment. And to do that, you use this command, the Python -m vn, then the name of the environment. Yeah. Or an alternative one, you can run virtual env. Virtual env, then the name of the environment. So either of them will work for Windows and for Linux. They'll work, all of them. Once you've done that, the next step is to activate the environment. I believe you are following along. Create the environment, then activate that particular environment. And how do you activate your environment? We'll use another command. So for Windows, so I'll divide this because there are different commands for different systems. So for Windows, I'll start with Windows. Mm, Windows, you'll just type the path. You'll just enter the name of the environment. So when you see this opening and closing brackets, angle brackets with this, that means you replace that with the value that you've used as the name of your environment. Yeah, so the name of the environment, that is for Windows, then you'll do scripts, then you'll do activate. Yeah, that is for Windows. So that should activate. So it's like you are running this. So you'll go to script, then you'll run this activate. So when you run that, it will activate your environment. Okay. For Linux, okay, Linux is different as well. So if you are running Linux, you'll do source, then the name of the environment, then you'll do bin, then activate. So when your environment is activated, you'll see something like this. So let me activate mine. This is currently I'm using Windows. So I'll type the name of my environment. I'll do scripts, then I'll do activate. If I enter, you'll see this the name of the environment within curly brace. Yeah. I don't know if you guys are seeing this. So we have got this is indicating that you are now in this particular environment. This environment env is active. And whatever will be installing will be installed in this environment. Are you guys understanding up to that point? before I proceed. So to tell if your environment is active or not, you will see this, the name of the environment within a curly brace. Uh, so you've activated your environment. What if you know what you don't want to use that environment, you want to deactivate it, you just type the word deactivate, just like that, deactivate. The environment will be deactivated. So let's go back and deactivate it and install whatever we require for our system. So the requirement number one that we'll install is Django. So to do that, we'll just run pip install. This will run in any operating system, whether in Linux or Windows. Just do pip install, then the name of our package, which will be Django. So we'll be installing Django. It will go and fetch Django and install it in our environment. I hope you guys are also doing what I'm doing so that I don't leave any person behind. And if you have a question, you can ask. So it will collect Django and install it. This one is installing Django 4.13, and it will also install SQLite. That's a database that we'll be using. We'll be using an SQLite and more other packages. It seems today my laptop is having some problems. Any question? Yes, Moses, I said you just talk because I'll not be looking at the screen. Yeah, it's okay. Just the question.
Okay, I'm lost somehow in creating the environment.
Creating the environment.
Yes.
Okay. I wrote these steps. So the first step is we create the environment, and we have two commands for doing that. And we have the first command. Let me just enlarge this. Yeah. So the first command you run this Python-m. That one you have to install Python first, and I believe all of us have Python installed. That is what we've been using it for the class. So run Python-m venv, then the name of the environment you want to use. So if you want to call your environment env, call it env. If you want to call it my env, you can call it that. You want to call it anything, maybe your name Moses, you can just do Python-env -m venv Moses. Then it will create an environment with that name you've provided. So anything within this angle bracket, anyway, like you are the one to provide that name. Like it is not a must to use a given name. You can decide to give it a name. If this is not working for you, then you can try the second option, this one. Yeah. So just write virtual env, then the name of the environment. They will be doing the same thing. So after you created the environment, you activate that environment because we'll be installing whatever we'll be doing will be installed in that environment. Will not be installed in the entire operating system, like in the system variables. If you visit maybe your system variables, you can see that. Like for Windows, you can just do system variable, environment variables. You can do. And if you visit this one carries the a path to the application that are installed in your machine. But we don't want to install Django in a machine. We want to install it in a given environment that we'll be using for that particular system that we are building. Okay. So to activate for Windows, just do the name of the environment, scripts activate. For Linux, just do source space, then the name of the environment bin activate. Then you'll see something like this. The name of the environment within a curly brace, that one is an indicator that your environment is activated. And we have installed Django right now. Up to now, we are okay. Yes, Moses, are we okay?
Let me try and look at it.
Okay, let me know if yours is working. So when you are installing anything for this project, the environment has to be active. You don't install it in the system, install it in that environment, like add it to that environment. So we have Django installed. and we want to start our project. We are going to call our project portfolio. So to start a project in Django, you would use the command Django admin start project. Django admin start project, then the name of the project, which is portfolio. Enter. It will create a project for you with that name, portfolio. Today, my machine seems to be taking long, and I don't like that. So if you look on this side, you'll see a folder called portfolio. Oh, sorry, have to remove it again. I don't want that enough outer folder. I will remove that. Yeah, I'll just delete that. Okay, now we'll start it, but at the end we'll do that period. So this one means don't like create that project in the current folder. So like it we will not create the outer folder portfolio, then inside it adds that project portfolio. So when I enter now, I will see that folder portfolio, but there will be no other inner portfolio. So within it will be having these four files: the settings.py, urls.py, sgi.py, sgi.py, and the net.py. Then we'll be having this manage.py. So the manage will be using it to manage our application, like to run the commands, create an application or do one, two, three. So we'll be using this to run other commands. So like if you want to maybe start an application or run server, you'll be doing Python manager.py run server and stuff like that. So that's what we'll be using this for. So our project is created. So we have the project portfolio created for us. Then we'll now create an app. An application, the system can have more than one application. Like in the school setup, you can have an app for managing the students, an app for managing the lecturers, an app for managing the employees, an app for the social media stuff, an app for courses, an app for blah blah. So you can just have one project, and this project can be tied to more than one application. So to create an application, you just write Python manage.py. Now we'll be using this to perform other operations. So we'll tell it start up, then the name of the app. So we'll call this our app maybe a core. So this one is for carrying the one that will be holding the basic things like the home page, a contact page, and your CV and everything. So we'll be adding those stuff on our core app, and that will do for us to create for us the application. And you'll see that folder here core having some Python files within it. Kuna mwenye amepotea. Have we together up to that point? Or things are becoming harder? Is there something that I should repeat that maybe you've not understood well, that maybe I should emphasize on?
Does that like apply to all like Python projects?
Not really. This is a web application. So for others like the GUI, like if you are doing a desktop application, there are different libraries that you'll be using. So for this one, we'll be focusing on the web application, building web using Python. That's why you are learning JavaScript. Or maybe you are not taking JavaScript. Sorry. So we are to do a web application in Python. So this is a framework for web only, but for an enterprise kind of application, a larger one. You are building a large application. This is the most preferred. So actually, maybe let me share something interesting. We have got. We want to check how many systems are built in Django. Like we want to check what do Google use, for example, what do Ubuntu use, for example, what are their systems running in. So let's do that. Maybe it can motivate you. Um, why are you alone learning this course, or are there people using this application of ours? So there's this our system that detects the CMS. A CMS is a content management system that given particular sites use. So for example, if you want to check for google.com, just provide the URL over here, then it will check the CMS that they're using. And you have actually Google is built in Django. They have used Django framework, and you can see that. You can say test other system like maybe Oracle. Is it Oracle? I don't know. It's the URL for Oracle or Ubuntu. You'll find that most of these systems are built in Django. And for example, if you get an opportunity to work there, if you are employed them, maintaining this system or managing them, of course, you are not the one that built them, but managing them will be easy because you understand whatever is happening. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I can proceed. So we up to now we have installed Django and we've started a project and an application. So we have one app, one project, and now we want to test if our application is running. So we are going to start a server. So Django comes with a lightweight server. A server, I know some of you understand servers and hardware, stuff like that. You go to a server room and you find some hardware over there with the higher performance RAM and hard disk and stuff like that. A server can be a software as well. The work of a server is to serve a request. Like there is a request, incoming request. It takes in that request, then returns a response to the user, right? So a server can be an hardware and it can be a software as well. So Django comes with a lightweight software server. And to run this server, you just do Python. The commands ndio mingi, but you'll get used to them. Python manager.py run server. Just tell it run server. And by default, we'll be having our server running at point 8,000. That's how it's configured. So by default, your server will be running at this port 8,000. So you'll realize something interesting that we have this one running at port 5500 and this one is running at port 8,000, right? If I open this, we'll be having something interesting. So this a default page that is built for you. And when you see it, it confirms that your project is rightfully configured and it is working and running. So this is the default page for Django. So you'll see that Django logo theme. Then we have got the documentation over there for Django 4.1. Then you'll be having this message. The installed worked successfully. Congratulations. And it is telling you that your debug mode is true. Debug mode is when it is true, can use it to debug your application. Debugging application is like solving errors in your application. Then we will also have sample application that is built in Django, so you can follow up this tutorial. Let me open it sideways. You can follow up this tutorial to build a polling app. So that app that allows people to vote and see the result and stuff like that. So this an example that's provided that by Django that you can use maybe to learn. So you can be following along with the documentation and stuff like that. I hope I'm not too fast. If I'm too fast, you just tell me. So up to now, our Django application is running, and you see this is what we have on port 550, the one that is serving our static application before we introduce Django. And this is what Django is giving us. It is not giving us this. And maybe so can someone try why that is not happening? This is what we expect on our homepage, right? But for Django, we are getting this homepage instead of this one. Can someone try what is it? Maybe to figure out, maybe to explain to us what is happening? Aisha Mohammed, can you try that? It's okay. Layla, Faith. Faith, can you maybe try to figure maybe what you think might be happening? Why the two you are running the same application with the two different servers, but the output are different, but it's the same application. Okay, Moses. Moses, what's your opinion? What do you think is happening?
No idea.
Okay, let me just explain. So we have got this first server, this live server for serving static pages. Yeah. And it is installed. It is an extension that we installed here via the Visual Studio. Okay. So this live server is for serving static pages only. So when you are building your application and it is HTML, pure HTML, like HTML, JavaScript, and this is just a pure front end, like just front end, maybe you can use React, but that one is not correct. Let me just use static web application. So this live server serves that. It does not serve any dynamic application. Yeah, does not serve any dynamic application. And if we look at this, it will look for a file named index when it is running index.html on the root directory. So it will look for this file, then it will load it and return that to the browser. And you'll actually see this. That is for this live server. For Django, Django serves dynamic pages only. You cannot use Django to serve static pages. It serves the dynamic or the full dynamic application with the backend and front end. So for it to do that, you have to configure and tell it that when user passes this request, for example, user want to visit homepage, this is where to find homepage. So you have to tell it, tell it, oh, our homepage is on index.html, our about page is on this one. So when you don't tell it where those pages are or where to find those pages, it will by default load this one. So that's why it is loading this one, because we've not directed it what to do, where to fetch our home page, where to fetch our about page. We've not tell it what to do or how to do it. So that's why it will be loading this one by default. Is it clear why this one and this one is different? How was I too fast? So this one serves dynamic pages only, while this one serves static pages only. You will understand that one as we move on.
Can you
It's okay.
repeat?
Okay, so we have got two separate servers. One is I installed that one via an extension inaitwa Go Live. So this is an extension, a live server that serves static pages, and it reloads your page whenever you make any change. So if I start it, it will look for anything with the name home.html or index.html, and it will load that on the browser. So that's what this live server does. So it's majorly used for static web application. So when I start it, it will load our home page that way. So if I do any change, for example, I want to change this one from brand to portfolio. I come here and I type here portfolio. Portfolio. I don't have to save and refresh, keep on refreshing the page. So that is the work of the server. Oh, yeah, it will be doing the refreshing by itself. So you see the name changes that. So we have got this live server whose work it specifically serves static HTML. Static means there's nothing that is changing on that unless you change the code. So you don't like it does not the content of it does not change unless you physically go to the source code and do the changing. But Django does serve the dynamic dynamic web meaning we have a backend and a front end. So for backend is what Django serves. You take in a request, for example, a user says, "Well, I want to visit an home page." That request is sent to the Django. Django takes in that request and returns a response. A response is defined on the views, and I'll illustrate that when we start coding. So you tell it when a user passes this request, return this page. So when you don't do that, for example, right now we have not done anything, it will by default return this Django predefined page, this one.
Okay, so the HTML document was just inside like the GitHub you opened.
The HTML is on my local machine. I cloned it, so I have it locally. I'm working with it locally. So this is a server that's running locally on my machine. That's why you can't see the domain of GitHub up here. So you are seeing 127.0.0.1. So this is the same as local host. A local host is like you are hosting that code in your local machine. So it usually run with the 127.0.0.1, then the port number. So this one as well. This is also running on the local host. It's not running from the GitHub. This is running from my machine. So the
It's
code is sitting on my machine. Yeah.
the HTML document that is in your Visual Studio.
Yeah. The HTML is on my machine, but I've pushed it on to GitHub. So we have a copy on GitHub and there's a copy on my machine. So currently I'm using the one on my machine. I'm not using the one on the GitHub. So the one on the
Yes.
GitHub is
So
yeah.
when like you started creating this project, uh,
Yeah.
this all documents like the index and the IM, was it like it's just in your Visual Studio, right? Like it's not associated with what we are building.
I built it a static template for portfolio using on the Visual Studio, correct? And I wanted us to use that. I built it specifically for this class. So I wanted us to use that template to convert static web application to a dynamic one. With assumption, my assumption was that maybe you have some basics on HTML and CSS, and you've built some simple web application
Yeah,
using
yeah,
the HTML CSS.
yeah. We have.
So I built this locally, fully static with the HTML, pure HTML and CSS and JavaScript. There's no any backend, and this was the appearance. So I wanted us to convert this together from static to dynamic. Dynamic meaning the content here can change, or you can change it through a dashboard or dynamically without touching the source code. You can also control what the user sees. So, for example, if a person has registered with you, the view that he sees will be different from the another person who has not registered or has not logged in or blah blah blah. You can also control when you need a person to register to visit a site or when it's not required to register to visit a site, or something like that. Is it okay?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we'll just proceed. So we want to convert this our Django. Maybe let me add something, and this is more of networking. So we have got the IP address that our Django is running out is at port 8000, but you can change that. So for example, if you already add an application running on that port, or the port is busy, for example, and you want it to use a different port. So for example, if right now I assume I maybe tell it I want you to run at port 5500, which is used by this one. No, it should not be running. Okay. It's okay. So if you want to change the port number, just pass that parameter as the second option. So you by default run at port 8000. If you want to change the port number, you just provide that over there. So just write maybe port 80 to enter, then the application will be running on port 80. So if I come back here to our previous one, This one is running at port 8000. If I refresh this one, it will just be loading, and it will not find anything because it is not being served at that port. So a port is like maybe a door or a window to a given resource. So if I change this port to port 80, then I now find my application over there. So I can be running many apps. I can run maybe up to 10 or 20 apps. Then I run them on separate ports. So and it is the same Django running them, but running them at multiple ports. So you can change the port number. You can also change the IP address. So maybe let's say you did a project, you've not hosted it on any cloud service, and you want to present it to maybe your class teacher or something like that, and you want them also to access that application. So what you do, you create a network within maybe using a router or something like that. Then if you know the IP of the router, so for example, if I know the IP of this Wi-Fi that I've connected to, then I provide that IP address over here. So I say maybe I want to connect you to maybe 198 dot and maybe 192.168 dot something, then the port number. So for this to work, this IP address, this network must be I must be connected to that particular network. And maybe let me see if I can check that on the Windows. But that is more of networking. So what I'm trying to say, you can run your application on a specific private network. You can run it on a public network that it is visible to anyone connected to that. And to do that, you just change the port to 000. You can run it on 000. That one it will be broadcasted to everyone. But you won't see it because you're not connected to my to my Wi-Fi or stuff like that. So you can provide an IP address and a port through which you want your application to run, and it will be done. So those are the parameters you can do with this run server. So you can provide the port number, you can provide the IP and the port number, or you can just leave it like that. So by default, it will run on port 8000, but you can change that. I know that one is too much for you. Okay, so that's how to run the server. You can run it on a specific port, run it on a given IP address, run it by default or using the default configuration, and it will just serve your app well. So with up to that, I think we are okay. Another thing you can do is you can create a super user. We have a command for migrate and make migrations. So if you look at this area highlighted in red, the Django is telling us that we have 18 unapplied migrations. Your project may not work properly until you apply the migration. To apply, we run that command. So it is telling us to run python manage.py migrate. Okay. Now, what's the use of this python manage.py migrate? This one will create for us tables on our databases. So there are tables that are created for us by Django by default. So it creates for us the one to manage permissions and groups and users. So you don't have to be struggling figuring out how to create how the tables will be relating, how to register user, maybe table for the username, password, and stuff like that, logging in, logging out, and resetting password. So Django creates for you that authentication model. And all you have to do is to apply that change to your database. And to apply that change to the database is why you use this command they are suggesting over here. So if maybe I'll just type it. So Python manage.py migrate. So that will apply the migrations on my database. So if there is a database, it will apply it on it. If there's no database, it will create one. So for now, for example, you can see we have got SQLite 3 that has been created for us over here. And all this migration have been done. So right now we have a table for managing our users, creating for them accounts, creating for them resetting passwords. Yeah, assigning them roles and permissions. By default, it's created for us by Django. So after we've done that, we want to create a super user account that can log in into our admin
How
panel.
do you create the database?
database. Okay, so
Yeah.
by default, Django creates for you a database if you don't have one. And if you want to create a database, for instance, it will depend on the vendor. So you have different kind of database management system. We have got the SQL, we have got the PostgreSQL. So for example, let me open my a single one database. We see how to create SQL. I have my example. An example is also a kind of a server for serving. This one is majorly used for PHP and stuff like that. And this one, pgadmin, is for managing the Postgres servers of the Postgres databases. So I'll create one for you guys. So we'll see. So as they load, so maybe you can just proceed. So I'll get back to that one when this one is done loading. So once you have our database created and all the tables in the database, okay, how Django works is if there's a database which you've connected, that is done through the configuration. So you go to your settings.py and you have your configurations over there. You'll have the secret key for your application, the bug mode, you can turn it on or off depending on where you want to use it. So by now, when you on production, meaning when your site is live and the users are using it, it is recommended it to be off because it provides a lot of information that hackers can use to manipulate your system. Allowed host is a list of the domains that are allowed to access your system. So if you want your system to be accessed by Google only, so you add that over here. And if you allow Google only, meaning any other domain you cannot access your application. Installed apps, this one is loaded by default. So here you add these apps that we are creating. So for example, now we are going to add a core. That one is like registering an app. So once you've created an app, you add it over there. Yeah. So we added this one. So you register that application. You have got the middlewares and the root configuration, the templates, and here is now we are in the database. So by default, Django had configured that their path to our database is on the base directory. So it will check on the base directory if there's this database. If it finds it, it will create tables in it. But if it is not there, by default, it will create one. So when there's no database on the base directory, it will create one. But if there's one, it will use that one, the existing one. And you can configure different database. We have got a tutorial on that, how to configure. If you wanted to use a separate one apart from this SQLite, the one it comes with, if you wanted to use PostgreSQL, you can configure that. If you wanted to use MySQL, you can configure that. If you wanted to use MongoDB and etc., you can configure that here in the databases. So by default, it configures to SQLite 3, which is this one. So here is where you configure the database. The configuration is done by default, but there's this documentation, there's this link here that teaches you how to link separate database. Maybe I can follow the link. I open it so I illustrate for you people. Okay. So here is how to connect different database. For example, for Postgres, this is the code, and we have got the explanation on each and every one. You have got the documentation on how to connect each and every database over here. So you can just follow. I'll be sharing that with you people. I believe this one is okay now. Okay. It seems we have had a problem. Oh, this it was using a post that is being used by this application. So let me close this one so that the port will be free. Actually, application cannot share a port. Like you cannot run two or more application in the same port. So a port is used to access one particular resource. So if this port leads to application A, maybe our portfolio is running at port A or port one, that port cannot be used by another application. When another application tries to access it, it is denied. And that was why our PG admin, which is configured to run at port 5500, could not run because that port was being used by this application here. So we'll create an admin as we wait for that one to load. So to create one, you just run Python manager.py. You'll be using this manager.py a lot. So manager.py, then you do create super admin, super user. Get super user, enter. So let me provide the password. Yeah, you are requested to enter the name of the username of the super user you want to create. So we'll give it a name admin. So the name is admin. The email is maybe admin@jeff.com. And the password will just give it 1234. 1234. And we'll enter that to confirm. And our user is created now. So this is a PG admin, and this one is for managing PostgreSQL databases. So these are several servers that are within this. So we have got this server 15. There's another server enterprise manager, and we also have another server portfolio here. So maybe let me create a database in this first one. So I'll enter the password to be authenticated to use that one, to use that server, and it will load. Okay. That info is not there. Okay. So it will load that. So we have got create an you can create another server or connect a separate server. And let me use this one as well. Today it seems mine is having a lot of problem. Yeah. So here are the list of the databases that we are having. So there's a database restore, another database Postgres, another database with that name. So to create a database in PSQL, when you are having PG admin, just right click and we have that one for create a database. Then you provide the name of the database. We'll call this maybe portfolio. And yeah, you can add other definition, maybe the encoding type, security, which users are allowed to access the database, what can they do, the privileges that they're allowed to do, the parameters you can add them, and there's advanced configuration, and this is the command. So what we've done is equivalent to this. So you can run the command create database, then the name of the database. With honor, you provide the user that will be using that database, and coding type and connection limit, but this one is not mandatory. So you can just have create a database, then you just provide the colon, semicolon at this point. Create database, name of the database, enter to create for your database. So that will save for us a database named portfolio, and we have that database created. Does that answer your question? Okay, then I think we can proceed now. So we have created our super user. We have our database and our server is running. We want to log into the admin panel that is created for us by Django. So you don't have to worry yourself on how you are going to create and manage users, how to create your admin and blah blah blah. So all you have to do is to just visit that URL whereby your server is running at. Let's start our server again. Yeah, so our server is running. visit that URL, but at the end of it, you add /admin. So you are going to access the admin panel. So it will bring you to this login page. You've not created it. The Django has created that login page for you. And you can see a Django administration. We can customize that. We can change that name later. So you just enter the name of the username we have created, which is admin, and provide the password, which is 1234. If I enter, you are authenticated and you are now in the admin panel. In the admin panel, you can add users. So for example, right now we only have one user. So maybe if I want to add another user, maybe let's say maybe Layla, it's Layla, like that. I just provide the name, then the password that she or he will be using. So provide the password and I save that user. And the user will be added to our system. So he or she will be able to log in with that account that has been created for her. You can also change the password through this form. I provide the password, I provide again, and I'll be able to reset your password, maybe in case you've forgotten your password. I can create groups and assign roles to people. Roles are very important. So maybe you want super users to be able to do one or two stuff. Another group, maybe group your sales to be able to only do matters pertaining sales. Another group of people, maybe another group do something different. You can manage that with the groups. So you can create maybe a group staff. Then you give them roles, what they can do and what they cannot do. So maybe this staff can do what? Can manage users. Let me look for users. Can change user. So I give it that role. I say they can add a user, they can view user, they can do one, two. So once I've created the group and I assign them roles, what they can do and what they cannot do, then I save that group. So I have a group called staff and their roles are predefined. So any person that is assigned this group staff inherits the features that a staff can do. So for example, I can decide to come to this user and then I assign her this group. So I say you belong to this group, you are a staff member, for example. Then you will inherit those roles that are assigned to staff. Yeah. Yeah. If I save, then she will acquire all the roles that a staff has. And we can test that. Okay, let me label her to be able to log into the admin panel. And we log out. So let me log out the super admin and we log in now as the user we have created. And now see, she can only do what we had predefined. She cannot delete these users because we said she could not. Our rules was that she cannot delete any user, but she can add. So we have controlled what this user can do by the use of groups. So that's how we control the permission and roles of separate users in our system. And that is done for you by Django. You don't have to worry yourself so much. Are you okay up to that point? Are you okay? Okay, maybe if you have a question, any question? Okay. Now we are having our Django running. Now we want to create our first page. And what we normally do is to say hello world. We started with Python, we printed hello world, we went to JavaScript, hello world. And then now this time around, we want to replace uh this one. Where is it? We want to replace this one with hello world. We want to replace this one with hello world. What do we do? We come to our app. Our app was called core. So we move to our app. Then we go to views. So in the views is where we control the request and the corresponding response that is returned to that particular request made by the user. So we'll be define our first page. We call it index, and this index will be taking requests and will render. No, we don't want to render that. So it will return. Let's import something called Django HTTP request. Yeah, so we'll import that HTTP response and it will return an HTTP response that is saying hello world. You are at the false index, no? Okay, remove this one. So we'll just print hello world. So whenever someone is visiting our index page, we are going to tell that person hello world. So whenever you visit index page, it will be displaying hello world. Okay. And we have to configure the URLs through which when someone types this request, what do we do? So from Django still URLs dot up. I know this might be too much, but you'll just get used to it. Yeah, you'll understand it as we move on. Okay. So we have defined a path such that when someone visit our route, the route meaning we are having this blank. So meaning if a user does not provide anything here, the user is visiting the root domain. There's nothing like slash something, it is just blank. Then we are going to invoke this function here, views.index. Views.index on this side will take a request from the user and then will return an HTTP response. An HTTP response like web, the the tags like it's returning on a web page with this image with this text hello world. So we have defined the URLs. We've called our function. We have to include our URLs in the project folder in the project URLs. So this one will be collecting all the URLs from different applications. So we're going to add the one from the core, and we just do path. Then this, then we include that. Then we import it as well. Yeah. Now let's refresh our page and see what we have. It is very tiny. We can't see it. Let me transform that one. So we are going to go back to our views and we're going to change it to an h1 tag of HTML. Should we do h1? Then close the tag. I believe it is visible now. Can you see it? Now we've replaced whatever we had there initially with our now custom code. So we are able to return an hello world text to the browser. And this is now served dynamically with Django. This is not a static page. There's no even we don't even have HTML file for that. We have not created any HTML file that is displaying that has the text hello world in it. But it is served and we are now seeing that text hello world. So we are assuming that the user is requesting for the index page and we are returning the exact thing that we wanted to display. Any question up to that point? Question? Okay. Let me assume there are no questions. Okay. And I'll proceed. So we have hello world over here. But we cannot write the entire HTML code in this tag through the browser. Like you want to write a paragraph, you provide that tag over here. That will be a lot of work, really lot of work. So that's now where we involve the index. Did someone have a question? Because I thought like I saw someone raise their hand. Okay, now we are going to return we are going to return a page now. So rather than returning an HTTP response, we're going to replace this with a page. So we're going to return an HTML file now. So let me just get rid of this very fast. Then we now return that. So we're going to return this index page. But remember, I said that when we're returning a page, we have to tell Django where to find that page. So we're going to create a folder and we're going to call it templates. And this folder is going to query for us all the templates that we'll be using for all the HTML files will be moved to this templates folder. So we'll take that, move it in there. Take this and this, that, and that, and move them into the templates folder, such that we have a folder called templates that has all our HTML file in it. Correct. Now we want to tell Django where to find our HTML files. Where do we do that? We go to our settings.py. Settings has all the configuration for the project. So it has the configuration for the database, for the apps, middlewares, templates folder, authentication and validators, and all those stuff are included here. So we move to the templates, and here is whereby we are going to tell Django where to find our HTML files. So we'll define a path. So libraries, I think maybe we ought to have done some libraries. We're going to import a library operating OS. Then we're going to use this to join our base directory to where our template is found. So we're going to tell it templates directory. Yeah. Oh, sorry guys, I got disconnected. Maybe let me take some water as I give you this time to rest. We can have a 5 minutes break, then we'll resume. So, meanwhile, you can be trying that code. So I'll be back in 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, then we continue. Try digesting whatever we've said, then I'll be back. We proceed. Let me take some water. So you can just follow the same format to add four functions. So we have a function returning CV, another one returning hire me, another one returning projects, and another one returning the index page. This hire me replace it with contact us. So we'll rename this to contact us. Rename, okay. Yeah, there's the name over here. So rename that to contact us. Yeah. So we have got those, just create this a similar function. So there's the index returning index.html, CV returning cv.html, then add two more. So one for contactors, another one for project. I'm back. I don't know if the 5 minutes are over or not. Can we proceed? Okay, I believe you declared the remaining one, the remaining functions. Did you manage to create the remaining one? So you were just to follow the same syntax, but you just change the names. Eric, did you manage to create those remaining two functions? Moses, did you manage? Ah, it's okay. Aisha, Moses, Leila, Moses, did you guys manage? And I just assume all of you are using their phones. Okay, let's just proceed. So let me create the remaining two functions. The one to return the what? We have one for contact, and it's okay. So just change this name to contact us. Then we have another one for what? So we have CV contact, then the project. So I'll rename this to project. That name is very long. So just rename it to projects. So and I'll create a function for project. Projects. This project should be taking a request from the user and returning projects.html. And that's okay. So we have our four functions and we defined a path for accessing them as well. It's like we are calling them. So we have one for CV, one for contact, another one for projects. Good. And if you want to confirm that they're okay, you just come here to the home page that is running over here. So you have one running at this is the index page. So you can navigate to /CV, the one you've defined on your page. So we have got okay, where is that error coming from? Oh, you may not reload it. Okay. So we've defined paths. So this is the home page, which is at the base. Then if you do /CV, it will take you the CV page. /contact will take you to the contacts page. /projects will take you to the projects page. So let's test that. So we'll come to /CV and we have CV. I can do /contact and I'm taken to this page. I can do slash what else? Do we have projects /projects? If I enter, I'm taken to the projects page. But you realize that the images are not being served by Django. Yeah. We have not configured the path to tell Django where to fetch our CSS, JavaScript, and the images. We've only told it go and look for HTMLs in a template called templates, in a folder called templates. So it will look for the HTML, it will find them, and it will render them. But for the image, it will not be able to locate the image in the sense that it does not understand this normal way of adding images to HTML, like the way we just use the absolute path or the relative path. So if you look, for example, in the projects um, file, you realize that they are using, let me confirm, you realize that you're using yeah, you're using the absolute, the relative path. So you just do the path and then you have something like that. But Django does not understand this. We have a way of loading static folders in Django. So when you tell it or define the path whereby it will be fetching those static folders and static files and how it will be loading them. So it will only load them where you require them. So if you there's a page that does not require those static files, does not require the HTML, does not require the CSS and the stuff like that, then you don't load it over there. So Django, you only use the resource where that resource is required, and you have to configure where a specific resource is being found. Okay, so that's why we are not able to load. We are not able to see this picture loading, but it is loading the page because we've configured that. Okay, so our next thing we're going to do, we're going to realize the importance of Django. Up to now, we've not seen any importance. Hata unaona inaongeza kazi mingi. Yeah. So just say it is adding a lot of unnecessary work according to how we see it right now. Because I could have just done that HTML file and it was just okay. But now we are having a lot of files and folders and it's still not doing everything that we need. That's because this application maybe you cannot realize maybe the importance because this application is small. Yeah. But with the Django, you can do inheritance in HTML, which is not possible with the regular HTML. By use of ginger tags, you can inherit such that you just have a file called maybe footer, and you inherit it whenever you need. You include it whenever you need footer. You have a navigation bar, which is a static part. So instead of repeating that, copy pasting it in every file, you just do one file and you just call it where you need it. So we are going to do that. Yeah, I think that is okay. So we will create a folder, we call it partials. You can call it any name, and call it common, call it partial, anything. So this folder will carry the HTML files that has common features. It will carry the HTML file that has common features. So for example, we have footer HTML. So our footer will be placed here and we'll be calling it when we need it. Are you guys hearing me? I don't know if you can hear me. Then we have got the header.html. Then we have got maybe we can include easy CSS files in one file. You can also include the JavaScript in one file. Yeah, so we have got 4 files that will be carrying 4 different content. So I'll go to my index, then all these CSS files, I'll place them in the CSS. So we just use them once. So in Django, they try to remove that don't repeat you. They try to emphasize on don't repeat yourself. Okay. So such that you just write code once and you don't repeat yourself. You don't have to copy paste the code everywhere. Just use that link once and it applies everywhere. I go and look for the JavaScripts that are used, and they're usually placed at the bottom of the page. I cut all of them and I place them in the JavaScript file. So whenever I call this file javascript.html, it will load all the JavaScript that we need for that particular index page. Then we can move this footer to the footer page. So we have our footer there. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, you can just, maybe we are going to do both front end and back end. If you have a question, you just unmute and say, because I'm not seeing the charts unless I switch to this view, the neon. If I'm on this other view, if I'm on the edit, I can't see the chat. So you just unmute and talk maybe. Okay, so we also extract this navigation bar and put it in the nav bar, the header.html. So we've separated these files into four. So we have header separate. These are common section of the HTML. The header, footer, the CSS that we'll be using JavaScript, those are common stuff. You don't have to repeat them every time. In every file, if you have thousands file, you keep on copying and pasting in each and every file. If you have to change maybe one element, you keep on looking for them in those thousands file and changing them. That will be a lot of work. So you just use them in one place, put them in one file, then call them when you need them. So when you are to do any change, just look for the file that contains them. Then you make the change. Then the change applies in all the files that are in editing it. So we'll create a template now. A template is a field or a theme that is going to combine all this. So we'll be having a base, but we'll be combining all these thing together. So our standard base will be, we'll be having the name. Maybe I'll use my name. You can use your name in yours as well. Then we'll be having this ginger tags. So I'll leave a documentation for ginger tags. Ginger tags is a way of embedding a dynamic content into providing additional functionality to HTML. Something like doing a conditional statement, like if, else, loops, and stuff like that. With the regular HTML, you cannot achieve them. But with this ginger tags, you can achieve them. So you can do blocks of contents, you can do if statements, you can do loops and stuff like that in HTML. I know it sounds strange that we're going to use loops in web, yeah, in the HTML. In fact, we do use loops a lot, more than anything. So if you've not understood loops well in the previous classes, I suggest you go back and look at them, because we'll be using loops and the if statements more frequently. So our title will be contained in this block. So this is our first way of ensuring dynamic rendering of the page. So you don't have to be writing the title every time. So you just write once, it will be merging them and returning that. Then I suggest you guys will be practicing this, because if you don't practice, it will be hard. It will be hard to understand. Okay. Now I'll be loading that CSS file. We'll be including them here. So you tell it go and look for CSS in the partials folder. Then in the partial folder, we have got a file called CSS.html. Look for it and bring it here. Then after that, look for the title. Title is Jeff. Then add whatever the users provided to that and provide it, display it as one thing. Then at the bottom, we're going to include the footer. Yeah. So we are including the yes and footer as well. So this will be footer. Okay. Now we have this code. How many lines? Just 18 lines of code. And we are going to tell index page to inherit that one. So we're going to remove all this stuff. We don't need them. And we go to the footer as well. We don't need this HTML and body. Then we extend this. So extend, if you've done inheritance, you know what extends does. So we'll be having the base.html, which is extended by the index. So index is like a child that is extending the base.html. Then we'll tell it what to add on the blog title. So we'll be having our home page there. Yeah, so and we'll be having content. Okay, how many lines of code do we have here so far? If you can see it, maybe someone to just unmute and say, how many lines of code do you see? Do you have faith?
86.
Oh, 86. There are 86 lines of code, right? That is on the
Yeah.
index.html, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so let's go and visit our index.html, this one, and we refresh it. Oh, it is telling us not able to find css.html in the partial folder. Oh, the tag is wrong. So it's include. So that's another thing. It's interesting that it is also able to debug your HTML such that your HTML is now able to return an error, right? In the previous one, HTML could not return any error. HTML does not have an error, in fact. You should not be able to get any error in HTML. But now, this time round, we are getting errors in HTML. So you are missing that C. Even if you miss just one thing, it will return an error. It will not work. So let's see how many codes of line this one is having. How many does this one have? Let me, don't know if I can enlarge it. How many does it have?
109.
109. So where are other codes coming from? Maybe someone can try. Where do we have the other codes, lines of code coming from? So the code, the base code, yeah, we are having 86 lines, right? The index.html has 86 lines of code. But when we are running it on the browser, then we are now having 109 lines of code. Where do the other codes come from?
From Django, from portfolio,
Yeah,
from the from Django.
from okay, from Django. Yeah, another option. Okay, let me, since we are very few. I think I can call everyone, right? I hope you won't leave. Layla, what do you think is happening? Yes, Layla, what do you think is happening? Eric, what could be adding those lines of code that you are having over there?
I suggested Django.
Django.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is what is happening. I want you to keenly look at this code. Let me generate it again. If you look at the top, we have all our CSS loaded. But when you look at our source code, there's no CSS at the top. You don't have a CSS, but it is loaded on this page. Okay. Apart from CSS, we are loading our navbar. Okay, the navbar seems to be disappearing. We are also having this home. We have home and we have Jeff. Jeff hyphen then home, right? And if you look at this one, let me close this one. I don't need this. Okay. If you look at this one, you don't have any Jeff here. You just have home, but we are having Jeff hyphen home. Okay, then we have got main. Okay, we have main. Let me look at our base. Something is missing. Okay, yeah, we had not added the top nav, so let's add the top nav. So our Django is doing the binding. So it is taking this base, which is having our header. It is header.html. Let me confirm the name. Yeah, header.html. So it will take this, it will print that, then include, it will look for this file, the css.html, then print, take the contents of that css.html, loads it, up place and you may include. Then e-block content will fetch the content of this index. So whatever is inside this will be loaded and mapped and merged inside this context area. Yeah. Then it will load the footer, then load the JavaScript, then returns everything. So for example, if I refresh this page now, we had not loaded the top nav. Now we are seeing the top nav here. Now the pages should be now more. But we have not added anything. Now we are having 121 pages. We have not added anything to the index page. But we are ensuring that our app is having a professional look. We are having a standard theme such that when you change one thing, it appears everywhere. For example, I want you to have a keen look at this. We have home, project, CV, hire me, right? We want to add the fourth one, maybe about me. So I want to add about me here, and I want this about me to appear in all the pages without me touching those pages. So I just come to the index page, I look for my header, and in the header, I'll add another class here, and I call it about me. So I come here and write here about me. And this hire me, we had decided to change it to contact. It was contact me, not contact us, because it is your portfolio. Contact me. Okay. Maybe I can just add another one for hire me, maybe as well, but that one will be a different story. We'll not be providing that one. Now we've made three changes. When we want to see if these changes applies to all the pages without us touching the pages. Now you see we have contact me, about me, and hire me. I move to CV. CV serving. Oh, CV has not inherited our base, so CV is still using its old system. Okay, let me modify all the pages. Then we have the standard look. We ensure that our app is having a standard look. So CV should not be standalone HTML. So I'll remove all this stuff, all this noise. So these are noises. Don't need them. So just tell it extends. Yes. And we are done. We are inheriting all the CSS, JavaScript, and header, footer, and everything will be loaded by default when we inherit base with HTML. Yeah, and that will give it that, then we have got the content, and then we delete. You don't need the footer as well because it is loaded by default. It comes to the base. We do the same for the project. We don't need the project to have this. That one is repetition, so we don't have to be repeating these codes here. Don't need them. We don't need this footer to be repeated as well. And contact us as well. So we are trying to remove repetition, so we don't repeat ourselves. That is it's usually called dry, something dry. Don't repeat yourself. Yeah, that's a kind of a mechanism in programming that they try to ensure that you just write code once. You don't it should not appear more than once in your project. This will be contact me. Yeah, that's now good. So let me refresh and I see. So we are at CV. CV is having those three pages where we go to projects. Projects. Okay. I think it's this one. And the project is also having those features. I've not added them. I did not add them manually. I will go to another page, maybe contact us. I'm a contact. And we still have those features added. And it persists everywhere. You have got the footer here. You have got the header and the CSS files, JavaScript files loaded, and everything is they are perfect and we are not doing any change. So if you just want to change something, you just go to the file, you do the change, it applies to all the pages. Now that's one applies when you are having a very large project. You don't and you are required to make a change. You don't have to be moving from one file to the next making the change. So the last thing we'll do with this our system, then we close it. I hope I won't be taking much of your time. Is just to load the CSS, then we call it a day so we can meet next time. So go to our project structure on the index settings.py, then look for this section with the static files. Here is where we load our static CSS, JavaScript, and images. So we'll add a static uh, root, then we do as.path, then that. So then once you're done with that, we collect static. So Django will load all the CSS and JavaScript that it needs for the admin panel. Imagine Django creating for you CSS and JavaScript without you writing them. That's really interesting, right? But that one is for the administration panel. Then we'll load another one for our side. So to do that, just write Python manage.py, collect static. Collect static. Yeah, and it is loaded. We have a folder called static created for us over here. And the folder has CSS, fonts, images, and JavaScript files. Yeah. So we'll move these assets to static. Move it to admin to static. Okay, let me just move it there, then I move you out. Good. So we have got our assets within the static folder. Good. So another change we'll make, this one I only needed it to collect the static. I can now get rid of it. So we'll do static that. Then we do base. Then we close that list. Then we run our static or run our server. Then we load the static files. Loading the static files, there's a command used. It's a tag. Just do load static. Hey, I know today you really learned a lot, and there's really a lot, and you don't know hata najua umesahau za kwanza. So you do load static, and for Django to know that you have to use the Django tags when loading static. So you do static, then we'll wrap all this into a static file. In fact, I think we have a shortcut for that in VS Code. So voila. So we want to make changes to all this. So we'll do static, then that. This one should be that. Then we move up to that point. This one I'll now have to consider them individually. Yeah, like that. So in that way, you've loaded the static file. So you do load static, then you use that tag static, then you provide the URL. Oh, for this HTTPS, you don't need that because it is loaded direct from a server somewhere in the cloud. So we don't need this one here. We only need it in the static files that we are serving locally. We also do that change from the JavaScript as well. We'll load it for one file. Sorry. Yeah, and we've loaded it for that. Then I think that will be okay. The other file does not need any loading. Okay, then we just do load static at the top. Okay, let me see what we now have. Alright. And when debugging with the Django, we always look at the terminal. So for example, here you have status. Status do have their meaning. So for status 4 is something not found. So it was looking for these images, it was not finding them. It's looking for all the static files, not finding them, and that's why it's not able to load them correctly. If it finds them, you will see the status either 200 or 200 and something. That one will imply that it is found. So, for example, now it is able to load our CSS and our JavaScript, but it is still not able to load the images. Yeah. So we are able to load the static, we're able to load the footer, we're able to load the the header and the bootstrap files. So we just add that path to enable navigation from one page to another. Just go to our header and the changes will be applied everywhere. So when including a URL in Django, you have to use the tag URL. So the same way in the static we used static. So in for URL we use URL. So for home we don't care where the home is. Just use a forward slash. That one will return you to the base directory. For the project, do URL. Then provide the name of the URL that you provided in the settings dot in the urls.py. So you goes to your urls.py. How did you call it? You call it projects. Ensure that the name is exact. The way the vile iko hapa. Ensure the name is exact as it is there. So go back to your header and provide that name of the URL. So when someone clicks this, then that method is triggered. So you are calling this function views.projects, which will execute and it will return for you whatever the user is requesting. Now we'll add for others. So we have the project CV. So we'll replace this one. So that method is not understood by Django. So you have to put it in a way that Django can understand. So this was also called CV. This was contact me. was contact. I don't know if this contact me or contact us. Oh, it is just contact. Okay. Then we don't have the about me. This one I just added that one for illustration. Then I me you can provide your email. You can do mail to. Mail to will open an email box of the user, whoever is using that system. If it's on a phone, it will either open Gmail or Looker or Outlook or stuff like that. Then put in the send to or the address to of the email to be sent. It will put in the email that we are providing here. So, for example, me, I'll use mine. That is info at jeff.me. So that is what I have there for hire me. So if I refresh this page, the about page should be gone. Yes. So we only have this hire me, contact, CV, project, and home. If I click on hire me, should open or it is mail to, not my to. It should be mail to. Yeah, mail to like that. Now if I click this, it will open a mail and it will put in my email address on that mail such that that person just adds in the whatever message he or she wanted to send. Okay, so the two address, it fetch the address that is provided and puts it into the address that is supposed to be receiving the email. Then whoever is sending the email just write the message and sends. So right now I can navigate to this CV page, I navigate to projects, I navigate home, I navigate to contacts, I navigate to that and across like that without having to go to each file and configuring. If I add one URL at the end, it will appear to all the pages. So I don't have to struggle making that change. We can have, oh, we had about me. Yeah, I should not have deleted it. So we have about me at the bottom, contacts. So we can link that one as well. So to link them, just go to the footer because those are at the footer. Just go footer, click on the footer, then we have about me. So if we can add another function for about me and call it about. For now, it will throw an error saying that we don't have that URL. So for contacts, we'll also do URL contact. Then projects, it was called projects. Yeah, then you can add link to your social media accounts. The one for Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. So maybe I can have mine for LinkedIn over here. That is link. How do you write LinkedIn? LinkedIn. Okay. .com slash that slash Jeff Diambo. Yeah. So that is over there. Then I can add maybe for Twitter. I don't know. I can't remember for Twitter. Okay. I can do for maybe one. Yeah, my website, personal website. I do that one. Then Diambo Jeff.me. Then you can add all the social link you want, the Twitter handle, blah blah blah. Then all those changes will be applied to all the pages that will be inheriting this. So if I over here, I'll get, or it is telling us about, as I had said earlier, we did not define the function that will be handling this about. That's why we get this error, no reverse match at that. So we just quickly add that view to return that to solve that error. So that's our one way of debugging. So when it tells you that there's no reverse match, the meaning there's no function to handle that request. So a user tries to find maybe about you, but there's no function to handle that request. So it throws the error. So this one will also tell us the about.html does not exist, and that's absolutely okay. So we go to the views and then we add about. So we just call it about me. It is taking that and the name is about. So if I refresh, that error should be gone. Yeah, and it is okay. But the problem is when you click it, it will not find that file that you've told it to look for, and it will throw another error. Yeah, telling you the about me page does not exist. So that's how you interact with this thing, learning from them, learning from one error to another, and learning how to debug with the Django. So solving that one is very simple. Just add a file with about me page. Just come here and do about me maybe .html. Yeah, and the problem is solved. Just extend base .html. Then we do a block. It's even writing for us a code here telling me, hello, I am Jeff, web developer from New York. And that one is Yone Wango. I've been working in the web, yeah, that's so correct. But that one from New York is a lie. Okay. Now that's about me. That's generated for me by my ID. It will extend base. It will add that title about me and then generates this simple text. It is 19 lines of code. That's 19 lines of code. And if I visit about me, I want to add it also to the top nav. So I don't have to be moving from one page to another adding it. I just go to the header. Then after contact me, before contact me, I mean after CV, then I add that URL for about about me. So I just do about and change this to about me. Yeah, just like that. And you are good to go. If I refresh this page, I'm okay. Now I have about me page. Yeah, with inheriting our base, meaning it is serving our footer. I can navigate to that. I go to contact page without any problem. I go to project page without a problem. I can translate to any other languages. I can move to that, move to that, move to that, and I'll still be okay. Yeah, and it's okay and okay and okay. So up to now, is there any problem? Any question? Any question? Naweza kuwa najiongelesha. Any question? Wow. Sorry, I'm seeing this late. So, but I think that's okay now. I think that's okay. So up to today, we really covered a lot, and thank you guys for attending. Do you guys have a question before I close? Anything? Any suggestion? Anything? Ama recommendation? Ama any word? Ama anything? Okay. It's okay. So you guys have a good night and see you next week.